Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about the importance of being aware of the things that make life so valuable. We introduce a new feature that will avoid me having to remember what I've learned this week, and we have a disagreement about the Carpenters. Gratitude.
All right.
Good morning.
Oh, hang on, I can't hear you.
No, you haven't got your headphones on. Can you hear me now?
I can. I didn't have my headphones on. Actually, that's interesting because I liked you better when I couldn't hear you at all.
I might blank the screen so I can't see you. Just listen. That'd be even better.
I found it more. I found you more informative in complete silence.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, after that abuse. How's your Sunday morning?
Yeah, it's all right, thanks. I've just been having a coffee and reading the newspaper. That's what you do, isn't it, on a Sunday morning?
Yeah. Well, I tend to watch Andrew Marr and the politics show.
What do you watch him doing?
Well, talking to people, ruining them normally in any sort of interview situation, which I find quite amusing.
Yeah, it's like, I suppose I don't ever watch that. I think sometimes I feel a bit overwhelmed with the political discourse, and perhaps Sunday feels like a day that I need to take a rest from it.
Yeah, but I think his style is particularly good. But it's all about balance. I dip in and out of the show. I'm not an avid watcher.
Yeah, you definitely want balance. You don't want to get addicted to it.
No, you don't. Exactly right. Actually, I'm a bit tired this morning because I was watching a film quite late last night, which was so I didn't finish till about midnight. So I had a bit of a lay this morning.
Was it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
No, it wasn't. It was one called Beautiful Boy.
Was it?
Which was about a guy who's a crystal meth addict and how the terrible effects it has on his family and the relationship he has with his mum and his dad and his siblings, etc. So it's a great
Sounds
film
uplifting.
to watch. It's not a feel good film, no. That's true, and it certainly brings home a lot of home truths. But for anyone in addiction, would perhaps do well to watch it. But wait till your recovery's under control first.
Yeah. That sounds as if it's reasonably heavy going.
It is. Actually, Steve Carell's in it. He plays one of the main characters. Who plays the office manager in the American version of The Office. So he's like the American David Brent.
Yeah, he's very good actually because he's one of those actors that can turn his hand to both straight acting and comedy, can't he? Very successfully.
He can, but I've sort of known him for his comedy first, so it's tricky then to divide them up, isn't it? And to then take him as a serious character. But no, he's very good. I recommend it anyway.
Mm. Well, thanks for that. So that's the movie review section out the way.
Yeah. I'm virtually Mark Kermode, aren't
I? I can't recommend any films. I'm afraid I haven't watched any films this week at all.
No, we won't put it in as a regular section, that's for sure. No, it's a one-off, mate. I'd hate to think you thinking, oh my God, it's Saturday night, we're recording Sunday morning, I haven't watched a film. I've got to better watch one a bit quick. I better get Netflix up. I'll run to review. Yeah,
you've made me watch films in the past, and you know how I feel about that. I'm not very good at watching films. Yeah.
No, you did. You bristled somewhat when I mentioned it before. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Anyway, so what? So we're not doing a film review. What are we talking about?
Well, my working title this week was gratitude lists.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was prompted to do an episode on it really by one of my oldest recovery friends. He's been in the recovery community longer than I have, and he's struggled on and off over the last sort of 10, 12 years with an increasingly problematic opiate addiction.
Yeah.
But he's currently several months clean, might even be coming up to a year. And he does a gratitude list every day, which he WhatsApps over to me. So I look at it every day. I know he does the same to other parts. He sends it on to his sponsor in he's part of one of the fellowships, and so he sends it around. But I always like to look at it. It's quite interesting to look at other people's gratitude lists, and I'm really pleased he's doing it. And I'm really chuffed to see him eventually, after all this time of not giving up, he seems to have got on top of it all.
That is lovely that he sends his list around. But has he told you why he does that? What does he get from sharing it with other people? I mean, obviously you get something from it, I guess, because I assume that you look at it and you feel kind of comforted that he's in a good place, recognising the positive things in his life. But do you think he gets something from sending it also?
I think so. I'm sure he does. He wouldn't bother to do it otherwise, I'm sure. But because I respond back from time to time. For me, it's great to see him doing so well. I'm so pleased having seen him. I bumped into him when he was homeless. I've seen him on the streets. Literally, in a sleeping bag on the pavement. And so to see him get to where he is today and to have gratitude for things where he had none at that point is an enormous leap. But yeah, I do feedback from him to time to time. Normally just some of it's a little bit jocular, because I know on one of the gratitude lists he sent me through last week, there was it's a 10-point plan he puts down. And he said,
he always does 10.
Yeah, it's part. I think he uses an app. And I think it's called My Spiritual Toolkit, and there's a 10-point plan he fills in and sends out. So it's fairly automated, but they are different each day. So it's not as if he sort of copy and pastes. But one of the points he did put in there was that he was grateful that Millwall had won. So I did respond to him on that point. Say, well, it's not one that you can put on your list very often. So I'll let you have that one.
Yeah, it wouldn't be one that would appear on your list, would it?
No, it wouldn't. But do you think that, from your perspective, does writing down a gratitude list help?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, whether you physically write it down or not, which I think is a good thing, or whether I think what happens is certainly this is what has happened to me over the years. I don't write a gratitude list. I don't write down what I'm grateful for, but I am mindful of it every day. So I will notice things in my day-to-day existence, and I will consciously acknowledge my gratitude for them. And the other interesting thing I've noticed about gratitude, and I've had this conversation with people on lots of occasions, is that I think when you start to really get into the rhythm of gratitude and recognizing gratitude in your life, you know that it's happening because the things that you're noticing tend to get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So we start to be grateful for tiny little, almost things that would appear outwardly to be utterly insignificant. But the fact that we recognize them and feel the gratitude for them is the thing that makes them significant and so powerful.
Certainly, recovery has taught me that you do find joy in the smallest of things, and the joy of just the natural things around you. So it is a bit, and I know studies have shown that when you either write this down or you give thanks or you count your blessings, it can really help in so many ways. The studies have shown it does have a positive effect in areas like with your sleeping pattern, and it can lower your stress. And it can improve your sort of your interpersonal relationships. And I remember when I was doing my rehab course and we was doing gratitude lists, I was the lady, always Vicky, her name was. She was brilliant. I'll come on to her in a moment, but she was brilliant in the way she used to cajole us through initially until we got into the swing of things. But she said you'll find that sort of any mental anguish you've got or anything you want to put out right on the page, it converts it. It takes it out of your mind and puts it onto the page. You can then almost like free up space in your head again. It's one of those things you can put down and you can revisit, and also you can see how you change. It's a way of monitoring your recovery, if you like, because your gratitude list, I struggled initially to be grateful for anything. And then gradually it becomes massive. I mean, the guy that sends me through his 10-point plan, on some of the points, he'll have 7 or 8 points on each point because, I can see when he's in a good flow because he crams a load in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think gratitude lists become self-seeding. So, the more you recognize the things you're grateful for in your life, the easier it becomes to notice other things. It becomes self-perpetuating.
It does. No, you're right, and I can vouch for that, and totally. And I found, and a lot of studies have found also that it sort of it decreases materialism, because again you appreciate the small things in life, and it found that when you did this, it sort of bolstered generosity amongst people as well, which I thought was quite interesting. But when I thought about it, yeah, you find, certainly in a recovery community, and I know that's only a small section of society, you find, that you do become so much better people. I know you're working from a much lower base initially, where you become very, very poor and very bad, but they also found
just on that point about generosity, the reason that it bolsters generosity is because generosity comes from a place of abundance. If you feel that you are in a place of emotional abundance, it's much easier to give. It's one of the conversations I often have with people about the importance of prioritizing your own needs and being conscious of yourself sometimes, because people tend to be so kind of obsessed with what the other people in their lives need, satisfying the needs of their partners or their children or their friends or their colleagues, that in so doing, they completely empty the tank and they get to the point where there's nothing left to give. And so, although sometimes it can kind of feel a little bit counterintuitive, stopping outwardly giving for a while and nourishing yourself, doing whatever it is that makes you feel okay, is the basis from which you are then able to return to a place of generosity towards other people.
I think so. I mean, I think it has things like just like thank you letters, which is almost like an extension of a gratitude list. That can have a positive effect on overall well-being as well. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes also you feel when you write down gratitude lists or express gratitude in any way, sometimes you can feel humbled as well, can't you? Or almost indebted or embarrassed sometimes. So it's not always a. I'm
interested in that. I'm interested in the indebted, embarrassed. Tell me about that. What do you mean?
Well, your gratitude list. I know, on my gratitude list going way back, I'd be grateful that someone had lent me some money. Mm-hmm. But then I felt this guilt and embarrassment and shame that I borrowed money and I was going to have to pay it back, and perhaps I didn't have it the time scale I wanted to give it back. So there can be some uncomfortable wrinkles in it.
Oh, that's so interesting, that, because what that says to me is that it kind of references something else you were saying before about your friend starting with a thing that he's grateful for and then kind of diving down into it to find other things that, are hanging off the threads of it. Because that piece of gratitude that you're talking about there, to be grateful that someone had lent you some money, if you look underneath that, isn't the gratitude there about being loved and cared for by someone? I mean, what you're really grateful for there is to feel that you are important. I feel grateful that I'm important enough to someone that they'll help me out, and I wonder, when you kind of look down through the layers of gratitude, my feeling is that eventually you'll get to a point where you don't have to feel shame or embarrassment or awkwardness, because there's a kind of purity to it that it's almost impossible to attach negative emotion to. Does that make any sort of sense?
It does. I just found it, certainly from my personal point of view, I found it quite humbling. I'd never borrowed money off anyone before. And so I found it very humbling and very, but bouncing back from that, when I was able to pay the money back and then get myself back on my feet, it was almost like a nice point to get to. Is a good reference point. It really was.
I feel grateful that you lent me £2 to buy some milk in the paper shop up the road when we were out for a walk once. That I don't think I've ever given back to you.
Probably not, actually. No, I won't hold that. I want to put that on my grumpy list. Yeah, more revenge.
I feel ashamed. of it now.
But just going back on track, I remember talking to my key worker. That I mentioned earlier on, Vicky. She was a lovely lady. I bless her. She was a long-suffering lady. I mean, can you imagine them to deal with all these bleary-eyed, angry of the world addicts rolling up into the recovery centre day in, day out? But she was so relaxed about things. And I remember one one week, because we used to do a gratitude list and take it in at the end of the week, and she'd talk to us about it and that sort of thing. And I remember when one week I went in and I just put a bit of paper on the desk, and I just wrote on it, I'm grateful that I didn't bother to do a gratitude list this week, right? And I remember, again, she was very cool about it. And she said, no, well, that's perfectly within your rights to do that. And she said, but you do realise that your folder won't be complete now. And she really knew how to push my buttons, because I thought, oh, my God, I can't have that. So I quickly filled that space in. And got that one sorted out. But then again, she went on to tell me, now you've got to be try and be a little bit more specific rather than just be general and saying I'm grateful for my family or grateful for try and pin it down a little bit and saying I'm grateful for that particular person in my family because they did a particular act, etc. So she helped me to refine it, and it's something I still do from time to time. I don't do it religiously. I just do it when I feel it's time to relook. I'll do it mostly if I'm feeling a little bit flat, and then it just gives me a little bit of a boost. And Vicky used to tell us to carry these gratitude lists around with us as well. Yeah. So she'd take a copy, put it on the folder, and you'd take yours away. Just so you could refer to it from time to time, which again I did for a good period of my early recovery. I found it quite useful.
Yeah, something you said there reminds me of something else that I've often spoken to people about with regard to gratitude lists. You said, if you've got something like your family on your gratitude list, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that we shouldn't have our families on our gratitude list, but the problem that some people have with gratitude lists is they start by putting things on their gratitude list that they feel they should be grateful for, rather than things they are actually grateful for. So when we sit down and write a gratitude list and we write, well, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful that I've got a roof over my head and I've got food on the table. Really, when it comes down to it, a lot of those things they're not the things that we feel grateful for. We might take them for granted, and one might say, well, we shouldn't really do that. But that is the reality of how we are. Gratitude lists stand and fall by our ability to write down truly what we feel grateful for, not what we think we should feel grateful for, because then you kind of get into this place of, it's a falsehood. We're kind of pretending to be a version of ourselves that we're not, whereas an effective gratitude list is about reflecting on the person that we really are.
When I was first went into recovery, I struggled to write stuff down. I'd got to such a point that I couldn't really write. My hands were too shaky, and it was awful. And looking back at some of my early gratitude lists, I can barely see what I've written down, barely understand what I've written down. They're not legible. So I was evolving from that point of view as well, but also getting better at writing them down and getting better. I mean, she used to tell us that, and it sort of forces your brain to do more searching, and that mental searching is good because it trains your brain to think, to trains your brain to automatically seek out good things, and to make you more naturally positive. So she had all this input upon me, which I appreciate better now, or appreciate more now than I did at the time.
Yeah,
I felt like I was being cajoled. I felt like I was being, going into areas that, I don't really need to do all this. And it was submitting to that, she knows what she's doing, that was so positive in the end.
I'm sure there were days in the early part of your recovery where it seemed as if there was nothing to kind of feel grateful for. But the thing you always had when you went into recovery was, I've had a day without a drink. And I bet you were grateful for that.
That was the first thing that went on my list. It was one that, although you weren't supposed to be repeating stuff, again, Vicky was quite happy to see that one at the top of my list every time, because it was, another week and I've not had a drink was to me was the most major thing that could have happened that week. It could have been anything else could have been happening in the world, but to me, and not having a drink for a week was just so significant.
I can understand the encouragement not to repeat things on a list, but I think there are some things that bear repetition. There are some things every day that I think we feel grateful for and are recognition of our gratitude for them every day just makes that gratitude stronger and stronger and stronger. And in the end, it becomes an unstoppable force. It's like, oh, that's the one thing that's unshakable in me now, because the fact that I feel that, the fact that I experience that is something that when all else has kind of fallen away from me, that's probably the thing that will keep me going.
Absolutely right. And to me, I mean, I'm still grateful. I'm still grateful every day that I haven't had a drink, and it's and that will never leave me. But I think that she just wanted us to try and not be lazy in our gratitude list and just literally copy and paste. So making us think about things, getting all these addicts together to try and get them into some sort of order was tricky for her. But she managed it particularly well. But I'm forever great few pictures on my gratitude list because she was so good. But to give this some sort of balance, I suppose. If some of the research tells us that if you when you're doing gratitude lists, and most people would think a couple of times a week is probably about right, but if you do too many, if you do it every day, it can be negative. It can be too much gratitude can sort of backfire. Especially if you're depressed and you're asked to express gratitude, you might have trouble in thinking what you're grateful for, or you may feel guilty that you haven't, going back to my analogy, paid back the money for that person, etc. So, I think again coming back to the old adage of balance in these areas is just as vital as everywhere else.
Yeah, that's true. There's certainly truth that when you push someone hard to think about something positive, when they're in a place where they are engulfed by negativity, it is counterproductive. It's like there's an exercise that I get people to do quite frequently, where I ask them to write down a list of all the things that they don't like about themselves and all the things that they value about themselves. And obviously the second part of that is a kind of gratitude list. But the timing of that list is so important. If you ask someone to do that at the wrong time, it has the opposite effect, because what they're able to do is they say, well, I can think of all these things that are terrible about me, and I can't think of a single thing that's positive. And that can be quite, when you're in a dark place already, that can push you somewhere worse.
Exactly.
So finding the right time to introduce the concept of, well, maybe there are some redeeming features about you. Maybe there are some good things about the world and the life that you lead. Introducing that at the right time is really important. Yeah.
I think you're right. It's not for everyone. Again, it's something that will suit a lot of people, but not everyone. It's not a panacea, is it? It's not going to make injustice or loss or pain disappear. But it is. There's some helpful elements in it that I think most people would gain from taking some time out just to do it from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right. It doesn't take anything away, but it is impossible, I would suggest, to live an enjoyable, balanced life without gratitude.
Without gratitude? Yeah, sure. But I think sometimes you forget about it.
Yeah.
It is when you have a structure and you do write it down, it focuses your mind upon it. And it can, I think, when you're focusing on the positive as well as the negative, it can boost your mood. And I think that's what what I found early on, and I still find it from time to time. It gives you a little bit of a boost, an emotional boost, and I think it's good practice. So I'm all in favour.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the other thing that it's not helpful to use it for is to try and block out things that are uncomfortable. We can't gratitude our way out of sadness or emotional discomfort. I think the way I think about gratitude is it's a mitigation, it's a counterbalance to uncomfortable emotion. We have to live through, we have to experience uncomfortable emotion, but as we're walking through it, sometimes our recognition for the things that we're grateful for in our lives are the things that that help us keep going.
No, I agree, and I think I'm going to practice what I preach, because I've changed the what have you learnt this week into this week. I've got what am I grateful for this week, and I think I might. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think I might do that for a few weeks rather than what I've learned. I think there's something nicer about it.
Yeah, good idea. Let's do that because, quite frankly, most of the things that you've learned are of absolutely no interest to anyone anyway.
Absolute rubbish, aren't they? I don't even like them. You can't unknow stuff. But once you've learned about the giraffe's sleeping pattern.
That was good. No, that was worth knowing. That was worth knowing. So I'm quite grateful that we've dropped that element from the podcast. I'm going to put that on my gratitude list today.
You've worked out another way of not bothering to think about things beforehand.
No, I've thought about something actually.
Oh, you have?
I've got two. I've got two actually. Am I allowed to?
Okay. Are you going to save one for next week, or would you get about both?
I don't need to. I'll always be able to think of things I'm grateful for. So
okay, good. I've made it a bit easier for you then, really, haven't I?
You have. This is easy because even if I forget to prepare, which obviously I will, I'll usually be able to think of something that I feel grateful for.
Yeah. Well, which you're grateful for me coming up with the idea then. So
there's something else. That's two. That's two I've got already.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go with mine just as moving. It's I suppose almost piggybacking onto what I was talking about, the guy that sent me his gratitude list each week, because I'm grateful at the moment that West Ham aren't in a relegation battle. Yeah,
that's a reasonable thing to be grateful for, and something that it's not often you can be grateful for. Let's be honest.
And that's why I've got to do it. That's why I've got to say it now, because this time next week we'll be drifting back down towards it again, and I won't be happy. So I'm getting it in now.
That's a very negative mindset. We should do an episode on negative mindset. Right, so the two things that I've got that I'm grateful for, one of them is a kind of broad thing that I often feel grateful for, and also sometimes makes me feel a bit overwhelmed. But and the first thing is books. I feel very grateful for books. I feel very grateful to be surrounded by so much joy and wisdom that's come from the minds of other people. I think we underestimate the beauty and the power of books. I sometimes go into a bookshop, not these days because it's been about a year since I went into any shop, but it feels a bit overwhelming at the amount of information and the number of stories and all manner of things that are sitting on those shelves. So that's the first thing I feel grateful for. And
can I just pick up on that, or did you want to go on to number two?
You carry on. You pick up on it. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking. No, I totally agree with that. So I totally agree with what you're saying there. Because I sort of remember you telling me a long time ago, and I can't remember what context it was. But you were telling me, just saying about, if you go into a library, you've got to come to terms with the fact you're never going to be able to read every book. So I can't remember what context that was in, but I remember thinking, that's an interesting way of looking at limitations.
I suppose people get lots of different things from books, but I just found them unremittingly comforting. Pretty much whatever I feel, I can go to a book and either that emotion, that mood will be reflected or deepened or soothed. And they're just fantastic. So that's books.
We ought to do an episode on books, really, because there's a load of stuff about books that we can relate to in many ways.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
To be learned, not just from the books themselves, but from the care of the books and the way that you... What I like about Waterstones is you go in there, you can find them they're in the right order.
No, I don't like that at all. No, that spoils the whole enjoyment for me. I like them higgledy-piggledy. I've got absolutely no idea where any of them are. And then I'm kind of browsing through the shelf and I think, I'd forgotten I'd got that book. Anyway, that's just an opportunity for you to have a dig at my inability to keep things in order. But the other thing I'm grateful for, and the reason I chose this one is because we were talking earlier about how sometimes things we're grateful for are tiny, almost seemingly insignificant things. But yesterday, I was on a walk with the family and we were in Watman Park, Millennium Park, and we were walking through the little treetop path they have there. And the dog was hairing around because she loves it going through there. And we were walking past these trees, and I noticed on the trees the tiny little buds of new growth. Ooh. After everything we've been through, I thought, that's such a wonderful sight that however difficult things are, the world's nature just carries on going. There's something so kind of comforting and steadying and anchoring about that. So that's the second thing that I feel grateful for.
That's good. Yeah. I think it's symbolic, isn't it? Symbolic of things that will get better. The things will grow. New stuff will come into place, replace the old. So I can appreciate that.
There we are.
Good. We've covered that. What about? I know I did send you a link to my Spotify grateful music of my guilty pleasures.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah.
One of the tracks on there, which was I'd already put it on there, ready for this week, was was "Rainy Days and Mondays" by the Carpenters, which I've always felt a bit guilty about liking the Carpenters, because when I was looking through the Carpenters list on Spotify, there's so many of their tracks that I really like, so I can have them down as a guilty artist. I think, really, don't you?
Well, I'm going to take issue with this, because I don't really think you could have the Carpenters as a guilty pleasure, because apart from the fact that their songs are fantastic, but anyone that can sing like Karen Carpenter, I don't know how that can be a guilty pleasure. I mean, she's got the voice of an angel. So I'd put that in the same sort of bracket as, I remember we had a conversation about me having an ABBA song as a guilty pleasure, and you took the piss out of me or something. But the quality of those songs, I don't know how anyone could feel guilty about that. So I think you've strayed into an area there where actually you should be quite proud of liking that sort of music rather than guilty about it. And especially when you put it alongside some of the other shite that you've chosen over the weeks, it just doesn't stack up for me.
Well, I think perhaps the way of looking at it was, would you wear a Carpenters T-shirt down the road?
Yeah,
you would
definitely.
Well, no, see, I wouldn't.
You buy it for me. I'll wear it.
No, I'm not talking in a literal sense here. I'm just thinking that's a way of working out whether you feel guilty about liking a certain group or not.
Well, if that's the benchmark, I'll happily, with pride, wear a T-shirt with the Carpenters on the front and ABBA on the back.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, you get plenty of rotten fruit thrown at you as you're walking down the road.
Yeah, but if I'm walking next to you and you've got your Dead or Alive T-shirt on, I'm going to insist that you put a sweatshirt on.
Okay. Well, we've sorted that one out, haven't we? We've sorted the Carpenters out.
Yeah, I haven't got a specific guilty pleasure song this week, but I've been watching, and I recommended it to you. I don't know if you started watching it yet. I've been watching It's a Sin this week on Channel 4, which is their drama series about AIDS. It's fantastic, so I heartily recommend that to anybody who's listening. But I found that the soundtrack, because it's set obviously in the 80s, I found that the soundtrack to that, which featured a lot of bands that I couldn't stand at the time, Pet Shop Boys, Communards, Bronski Beat, all that sort of stuff. I really love those songs. So, and I don't know whether that's just the nostalgia of the 1980s or what it is, but there you go. That's the best I can do for a guilty pleasure this week.
All right, then. Goodbye for now, then.
See you later.
See you later. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook at Sideways Podcast, or you can email us to let us know what you think of the show and with anything else you'd like to ask us. Finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down a road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off. Won't you stand up and take a bow?